You ever run D&D combat and realize your party is not really acting like a party? Like everyone is technically on the same team, but in practice, it feels like 6 separate people waiting for their own turn. You know, like the fighter swings their sword and complains that that's all they can do. The wizard, they cast the same spell they always do every single turn. And half the table is just sitting there waiting for their initiative order to come back around like they're waiting at the DMV. Same. And I got tired of that. Because if somebody can leave a table, make a sandwich, check Discord, come back and still not miss their turn or miss anything interesting, that's a problem. And we can fix it without 30 people in the comments yelling at you to play a system that you don't want to play. So if your table is barely locked in during combat, goes on bathroom breaks because it's not their time to play D&D, stick around because I've got a fix that'll make your players realize that even though combat has been going on for pretty much like an hour, it feels like it's only been going on for 10 minutes. Because in the best D&D parties, the coolest moments are not always one character doing something alone. It's the barbarian throwing the gnome rogue across the battlefield. It's the wizard setting up a fighter's sword of magic to do something that shouldn't be possible. It's one player saved another player from getting bodied at the last possible second and looking like a freaking hero. So years ago, after I got burnt out on D&D, I played Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and saw one of the coolest party mechanics I had ever seen in a video game and thought, wait, the Guardians are literally a D&D party and this is literally what D&D combat is missing. So, like any other law-abiding citizen, I stole it and I turned it into a D&D mechanic called the Unity system. I'm here to show it to you today so your players work together more and they can make some awesome and badass moments. So, my name is Sensei Suplex, and a lot of what I do is take ideas from video games, anime, and other media, and then figure out how to make them work in Dungeons & Dragons. This video is about one of the best systems I ever made. And it's not the most balanced, it's not the most official, and it's definitely not the most rules as written thing. But it's one of the systems that created some of the most hype, memorable, and roleplay heavy moments in combat that I've ever seen from my table. And this is the Unity system. It rewards players for helping each other in creative ways. So by the end of this video, you'll know how the system works, how to run it, what broke when I used it, and what I would change if I brought it back today. A few years ago, I was burnt out on D&D. I knew I was going to come back and run more campaigns eventually, but at the time, I needed a break. And during that break, I played Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. And yes, Guardians of the Galaxy has a video game. And yes, it is actually really good. But the thing that stuck with me was not just the combat, the jokes, or the soundtrack, which is also awesome. It was the party dynamic. The Guardians are basically a D&D party in space. Think about it. Everybody has a distinct role. Nobody feels like a copy of someone else. They argue, they complain, they clown each other, they mess up. But when things get serious, they still feel like a team. And the mechanic that made that feeling hit the hardest was the huddle. In that game, while you fight, you build towards this moment where Star-Lord basically calls the team together. Everybody runs in and they start talking about how the fight is going. And you have to choose the right response to motivate them. So if they're down, you kind of lift them up. If they're getting too cocky, you ground them a little bit. And then afterwards, the best music kicks in. Everybody gets the back into the fight and the whole battle shifts.
Guys, huddle up!
What a blast! I haven't felt this excited since the Galactic War!
Better watch her out there, Quill. She fought on both sides, remember? Whereas me, I don't need to take sides to mow anybody down. I just love making scumbusters go boom!
Okay, I get it. Those creeps out there, fighting them gets the blood pumping. Oh yeah. But if you listen to that pumping too hard, your heart takes a dive and the losing starts. Stay on target and we'll make them all go boom. Who's with me? Victory is ours!
It's gonna be fun!
Yo, the first time I saw that, I immediately knew I wanted that feeling in D&D because it was just something special. So when I started building my Guardians-inspired campaign, Astral Odysseys, I built my own version of it, and that became the Unity system. So here's the basic version. Players earn Unity points when they creatively help another player or the whole team. And not by doing normal 5e support stuff, not by just like saying, hey, I cast Healing Word, and not just pressing a feature that already does a thing that helps the team. They earn Unity when they go beyond the normal features on their sheet and create a moment-inspiring teamwork. So for example, the Barbarian throws the Rogue across the battlefield so the Rogue can reach the enemy. So the Barbarian, they may roll Athletics. The Rogue, they will roll Acrobatics to stabilize themselves in the air to hit the target. And if the Barbarian succeeds, succeeds, hey, party gains 1 unity point. But if both players succeed, the party gains 2 unity points instead. And once the party reaches 10 unity points, someone can spend their action and bonus action to call the huddle. Then, similar to the game, you give an actual in-character speech. The player rolls a d20, and on an 11 or higher, they get their turn back. They get their action and bonus action back. But on a 10 or lower, they don't. Regardless of the roll though, then the team gets a 1-round buff. Downed allies rise back up to 1 HP, everyone gets some temporary HP, everyone gets advantage on d20 rolls for 1 round, and the DM plays the party theme song, a character-specific theme song, or whatever music that makes the table hype as hell to increase the energy. And that is the whole mechanic in its simplest form. But hey, if this type of gameplay excites you, the gameplay where you have a party of people who actually give a crap at your table and are just as excited to play as you are, I'm not sharing this for kicks. I actually run a massive living D&D universe called Project Aurora. There's dozens of DMs and hundreds of players where what one player does in their session can affect what happens in the entire setting and several other DMs games, while we run an awesome West Marches style MMO in D&D with over 100 players. We have raid bosses, text RP, player ran stores and economies, faction war, you name it. And within 5 years, our idea is to have over 1,000 concurrent players, evolving storylines, and other cool systems just like this one that you can also experience. As we're going to change how D&D is played forever. So if you want to play in a D&D game for the first time, or play with a different group of people into video games, anime, comics just like you, check the link in the description and join us. Now, back to the breakdown. So let's talk about how players actually earn unity. The key words that you're going to need to remember throughout all of this is creativity and helpfulness. If the action is creative but it only helps yourself, that's not really unity. But what if the action helps someone else but it is just like a basic rule with no extra roleplay that shows off who your character is? Well, that's not usually unity either. This system kind of works similar to DM's inspiration, but instead of rewarding a single player with like a floating bonus, it feeds into like a team-wide meter. The whole group is building towards something together, and most of the time, players spend a reaction just to do this. So imagine this. An ally misses an attack, so another player jumps in and tries to create an opening to let that player re-roll. Or imagine a time where an enemy is about to hit someone, so a player reacts to try to interfere. Or imagine where someone is falling, dying, trapped, or about to fail something important, so another player uses their reaction to help. And the DM just calls for whatever ability check makes sense. So athletics, acrobatics, arcana to manipulate magic, whatever fits the scene at that moment. And if it works, they gain unity. But players can also earn unity on their own turn. If they give up their action, bonus action, or movement, or some other meaningful resource to help someone else in a creative way, that can count too. The important thing is that it needs to cost something, because if there is no cost, players will spam certain things that they figured out their character is good at until it gets old and it makes it not really special anymore. Because if the barbarian throws the rogue one time, that's awesome, and that's a moment the players are going to remember for weeks. But if they do it every fight, every session, for 3 months, that's not creative. At that point, you gotta either stop rewarding unity for it, or you gotta have enemies adapt to the point where they've heard of the exploits of the legendary duo of the gnome chucking Goliath. So what does not count? This part matters a lot, because as mentioned before, I don't give unity for normal helpful mechanics unless the players add something creative to it. I've mentioned casting Healing Word on a down ally does not give unity, since that is just a spell. But let's also look at the help action. Using the help action with no description does not give unity. If a player says, hey, I just used help, how does your character try to help this person out in a unique way? Then it transitions from someone just using a game mechanic to someone really investing into the roleplay side of things. And if they can't think of anything, you can just ask them, hey, like, what are you actually doing? Are you distracting the enemy, empowering your ally's weapon, or are you throwing sand in someone's face? Like, are you using magic to reshape the attack? Whatever it is, describe it. Show me how your character is actually helping. That's where the system comes alive, and that's how you can implement roleplay into combat. Let's talk about calling the huddle. So once the party reaches 10 unity points, the huddle becomes available. A player spends their action and bonus action to call it. And in my campaign, this was justified by the party linking together mentally for a few seconds. Time would freeze, the players would enter the astral sea or some shared mental space, and for one brief moment, no matter where they were on the battlefield, the team could rally together. You can flavor that however the heck you want. It can be magic, divine power, or a psychic link, whatever fits your game. The team gets one moment to breathe, rally, and just come back together. So then, what happens next is someone gives a speech, and I mean an actual speech, in character. It doesn't need to be perfect, it doesn't need to be dramatic, it just needs to be real for the table. Sometimes it was an emotional speech, or sometimes it's just one player saying exactly what the party needs to hear. But sometimes my players just made it funny where they would recite the B movie, and it became their battle cry amongst their group. It was funny for them, they loved it, who cares, right? Whatever it is, the point is that it makes the party come together for either an epic moment or for just a big old laugh, similar to how the Guardians of the Galaxy actually work as a team. But regardless, I strongly recommend limiting the speech to 1 or maybe 2 players. I learned this the hard way. If every player tries to speak during the huddle, the moment gets either too long or it just loses focus. So let the person who calls for the huddle speak, or let said person choose the player who is best at that kind of moment. So extroverted players, they love this, and it also allows introverted players to still call for the huddle without being punished. After the speech, the player rolls a flat d20, no bonuses. What you could also do, I actually forgot to include this in the document, but whenever you roll a nat 20, you can give an even bigger bonus. What that is, I don't know, but you can do something cool that works for your games. But for this one round, all d20 rolls have advantage. But then the music changes, and this part, y'all, this is not optional to me. This has to happen. The music is part of the mechanic, because you're not just giving the players a buff, you're creating a shift at the table. The players should feel that the scene has changed, like they earned this moment. The huddle, it lasts 1 round, 6 seconds, but for those next 6 seconds, the players gotta feel like this is their final stand. This is their time to shine. Afterwards, then the unity resets to 0. And that's their only shot for the entire combat. Or if you really like this system, you can have it happen continuously if they keep working together, so you can have multiple huddles throughout one combat. It's really up to you. I've done both and I enjoyed both. But a small side note, you can sometimes let people earn unity outside of combat if players work together. This is what I did and players loved it. Just be careful of letting players stack up unity before the combat starts, because eventually they're going to wait till the big moment to finally huddle, and it's going to kind of defeat the purpose of the huddle because they're always storing it and waiting for the most opportune moment rather than just consistently working together. But here's some optional mechanics. One optional mechanic that I used was the circumstance dice. It was based on Pathfinder and the circumstance bonus. A circumstance dice is a bonus or penalty die the DM adds because the circumstances of the scene demand it. I used this instead of a flat bonus because dice feel better at the table, and players love the clicky clacky roly rollies. Like, come on now. At proficiency bonus 2, the circumstance dice is a d4. At 3, it becomes a d6. At 4, it becomes a d8, and at 5, it becomes a d10, with 6 becoming a d12. You can add or subtract the die from a roll. You can roll multiple circumstance dice. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. But you can add that or subtract the dice from a roll, a DC, a saving throw, or whatever makes sense. But again, don't stress about the numbers. The point here is simple. When a player does something creative, your table should feel like that idea freaking matters. You can either give a creature disadvantage, advantage on a roll, or alternatively, now you have a new tool in your toolbox, you can alternatively give them a circumstance dice. Now, granted, you do not need this rule to run Unity, but it helps if you want smaller teamworks to have a mechanical ward outside of the huddle meter. So later on, I expanded the system with something I called aspects of creation. Now, this is extremely optional, but I had to include it because I know my players would get mad and upset if I didn't. The aspects were ancient powers that changed what the huddle did for each character. Think of them as infinity stones. The takeaway is that if your huddle starts feeling repetitive, you can give players unique huddle bonuses tied to their characters. Hell, in your game, this may be the reason why you give your players your own personalized ultimate move, or a feat that only activates during a huddle, similar to an ultimate in Overwatch or Marvel Rivals. That turns the huddle from one shared buff into something that feels a little more personal. So the problems I ran into, now let me be honest, this system is fun, but it is not free. The biggest problem is that it makes combat longer. Players pay more attention, which is good, but every action creates more talking, more checks, more decision making, and more chances to interrupt the round. Another issue is that some players forgot the system existed until I reminded them. Meanwhile, other players learned how useful it was and wanted to use it constantly to the point of slowing things down. And without limits, everyone on the map tries to interfere with one important role. So this became especially rough with boss fights. Boss turns could get interrupted too much, and bosses could almost never crit because the whole party would try to stop it. Yeah, it would engage them, but it would make things harder to actually balance around. So if you do use this system, you need limits. So it's time to decide yours. Hey, you have to be within 30 feet to be able to assist another player, to interact with the role at all. Also, it requires a reaction unless they're spending other resources on their own turn. And sometimes I even still require a reaction. But also, limit huddle speeches to 1 or 2 players. But also another thing is, don't use this mechanic in a campaign that already has too many homebrew mechanics. That last one is important, and it's actually the reason why I didn't use it in my current campaign, Oathbound, because I want to try some other stuff out right now. But think about it this way. A system can be good and still be the wrong tool for the campaign you're currently running. Maybe you got to save it for another campaign. But I'll tell you this system is if you want more teamwork in your games or you want more hype and memorable moments. So this system is for DMs who want combat to feel more cinematic. more roleplay heavy, and more team focused. This is a system clearly built for rule of cool DMs. It is for tables where players like helping each other look cool. So this isn't ideal for every table. If your group wants strict, tactical, wargamey combat with minimal interruptions, if your players don't really like roleplay inside of combat, then this may not be for you. And that's okay. If your campaign already has 5 other homebrew systems running, maybe don't add another one. But if your table likes creativity, teamwork, and big character moments, this can create scenes your players remember years later. The Unity system changed how my players interacted with each other in combat. It made them look after each other, and it made them pay attention outside of their own turns. And it gave them a reason to roleplay during fights instead of only in between them. And when the huddle worked, it created some of the most memorable table moments I have ever had. But like every homebrew system, steal what works and change what doesn't. If it starts slowing down your combat too much, tighten the rules, throw some stuff out, man. If a player forgets it exists, make the Unity meter visible. Like make a marker on the table or VTT that everyone can see. The point is not to add more rules for the sake of rules. The point is to reward creative teamwork so the players actually feel like a team and want to work like one. By the way, if that sounds like the kind of D&D you want to run, I put the Unity system guide together so you can steal it, change it, break it, fix it, and use it in your own games. Any members on my Ko-Fi page, go get it for free. The link is in the description. But my name is Sensei Suplex. I run Project Aurora, and my job is to show that D&D can be way more creative, way more personal, and way more freaking fun than people realize. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.